raised.
Thank you. I would appreciate that, Minister. I do have some questions about the Lomborg matter as well. Is this the appropriate time to deal with those? Yeah. I'm just, and I understand Senator Carr wants to ask about this too, so I'll keep it brief. I'm just wondering, can you take me back to how Flinders University came to be involved in the Lomborg matter? Did the government approach Flinders University and say, hey, here's a pool of money you might be interested in if you take on board this particular academic that's promoting the government's ideological position? Or was it the case that Flinders approached the government more proactively? How did it come about?
Senator Sims, I'll let officials answer the details in relation to Flinders University, such as they may have them. For my understanding, of course, which was canvassed through these committees prior to your arrival in the Senate, there was a contractual agreement with the University of Western Australia that fell over for well-publicised reasons. I think, as I understand it, Flinders University have had some high-level discussions about the potential for alternatives or variations to the type of model that UWA had proposed. I think it's important to be clear there that Flinders were not necessarily seeking to sign up in that regard to the same thing as UWA, that they had their own views, which Professor Sterling would probably be best equipped to explain on what might be an appropriate model. But perhaps before we go any further on this issue, it would probably be helpful, because I'm sure the question would inevitably come for senators to know that the previous minister, Mr. Pyne, did make a determination that this proposal was unlikely to enjoy success, and that the funds could be better utilised elsewhere.
Sorry, so the money's been withdrawn? The project money's been withdrawn?
Correct, Senator Carr.
So the offer's off the table?
Correct, Senator Sims.
And when was that decision made?
That was made by Mr. Pyne. I think in the last short while of his time as the minister, in the last week or so. I think it was within the last week of his time as minister.
So is Flinders University aware of that? Because there's been some media reports that they're still pushing to try and get their hands on this money.
Knowing that it was likely to be raised today, I spoke to Professor Sterling this morning.
So we can say today with clarity that that's the end of the Lomborg matter. It's not going to be hosted here in Australia.
Look, if any Australian university wants to engage with Bjorn Lomborg, they should, of course, feel absolutely free to do so. I do think, and as I've said in these hearings and elsewhere before, that some of the reactions we saw publicly were quite inappropriate, were contrary to good principles of autonomy of universities and academic freedom.
I don't want to cut you off, but that's not really the question I asked. So seeking to clarify that that's the end of the matter in terms of there's not any money on the table now for a university in Australia to host the Lomborg Institute or another kind of
universities get lots of money from government, and much of it they have some discretion as to how they apply it. But certainly a specific incentive from the government for such an institute is no longer available.
Does the government have any plans to incentivise taking on, or universities taking on, commentators to promote other aspects of the government's policy platform? Is that something you're looking at?
Senator Sims, we did in the last estimates highlight some of the other examples that exist in terms of the Whitlam Institute. I think that was funded by a previous government, but no, I have no particular proposals for particular centres that I come to mind at present that are being supported by the government or offered by the government anywhere, and certainly. And I think this is important. It was never the intention of the government to fund a commentator, as you have described.
Doesn't have any
Dr.
academic
Lomborg.
sort of background in that area.
The offer was for support to establish a centre that would involve collaboration and research and publications, no doubt, and all of the usual types of things that such institutions working in universities often do, and that I think it had particular work and focus, which has been quite misrepresented in the public commentary, but particular work and focus in terms of the most effective utilisation of international development assistance and foreign aid budgets, and that Dr. Lomborg's work there is I think quite well regarded in some quarters, and is about trying to get the best outcomes in developing economies from international development assistance.
But nonetheless, the offer is off the table.
That's right.
Can I also ask, have any universities raised with you, and perhaps one of the reasons why the government's withdrawn this is the reputational damage that's done to universities through their association with Mr. Lomborg? Is that something that you've also been concerned about as Minister?
Look, I have been concerned about and I suspect Mr. Pine was as well, about the fact that the reaction to such proposals was undermining the academic freedoms and institutional autonomy that should be central to the operation of our universities. I would certainly hope that if a university, without government involvement directly in their decision to do so, sought to engage Dr. Lomborg in some way, that we may see a much less hysterical reaction from some quarters, and that the fact that universities should be full of competing views and ideas and encourage debate within them might actually be accepted and supported.
Okay, I'll move off this shortly because I know Senator Carr's got some questions on it too, so I'll move off shortly. But I just also want to ask, why is it if the government had already made the determination that this wasn't going to proceed and the money was off the table, why then did it allow Flinders University to still discuss the matter? I mean, I recall actually around the time that I started in this role, there was quite a bit of media discussion around this in South Australia, in my home, or our home state, Minister. If the government had already made a decision to take the funding off the table, why didn't it come out and say, oh no, the offer's not there, and tell the university and clarify the matter?
I'm not aware if there were, over the space of the last few weeks, continued discussions at all with Flinders University. I am aware of some of the Adelaide media commentary that occurred, some of which I think was actually using comments of Professor Sterling that were quite dated themselves, if my recollection of that is correct. But
the Vice-Chancellor did give an interview one morning on local radio where he talked about the universities actively seeking to get their hands on this money. The factual answer, I think, to your question there is that obviously with the new minister, there's a lot of issues to get across, and really it was appropriate for me to inform Professor Sterling, and so that had to wait for me to be briefed to understand the decision that had been proposed by Mr. Pine, and to provide that advice. But nonetheless, this was sort of lost in the transitional period, is what you're saying. It was a matter you were still reviewing at that time, but you've today advised Professor Sterling that that's it, the offer's off the table.
That's right. And look, as I understand it, as I said before, it was Flinders' engagement in this, I think, was at a high level and was with, as I understand it, a proposal that was different in nature to that which had been contracted with UWA, and different in nature to perhaps what had been presented by the government. But officials may be able to give more detail in terms of any discussions with Flinders, and especially whether any such discussion had been occurring over the last month.
Could I ask about that,
sure.
please?
So the initiative was Flinders University's initiative to become engaged in the Lomborg Consensus idea. They put a proposal to us, which as Minister...
Sorry, I'm having a bit of trouble hearing you. Could you
Sorry.
speak a bit more into the
Chair's
microphone?
dealt with it. It's all good.
Thank you.
They put a proposal to us which was a little bit different to the contract that was in place with the University of West Australia. I'm not aware of any conversations in recent weeks, but Mr English would have more detail on that.
Dom English, Group Manager of Research and Education Group, Research and Economic Group, apologies. No, there have been no active discussions with University of Adelaide about their proposal in recent weeks.
Flinders University.
Excuse me. In recent weeks, given the need to ascertain, to bring the Minister up to speed as he discussed. Sorry.
Right, so there'd been no contract had been entered into or anything like that, so there's no... It was more just...
I think that was a long way.
Yes.
Okay.
Off Senator Sims, as I said, given it was a proposal, an idea from Flinders that was different from the firm contract with UWA to establish the Australian Consensus Centre.
Yeah, but still the same concept, really, with another name from what you're saying. Doesn't sound there are huge differences between the two.
No, we actually haven't said that. What we've said is we didn't have any conversations with Flinders during this period.
Okay, all right. But there were discussions previously, or
Well, I think they came...
they
it
came
was
to
their
you?
proposal,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Okay, all right. I think that covers it. Thank you. It's been very helpful.
Minister,
Thank you, Senator.